It's Alex. Thanks for clicking on this video. If you know someone or it's potentially you considering bankruptcy, this is a good informative video from someone who has experience working with lots of people who have gone through bankruptcy successfully, and a lot more, the majority of the folks have not gone through bankruptcy as successfully. Depends on a lot of factors. I am not a bankruptcy attorney. This is not any advice, but from somebody who's just like you, who deals with people dealing with bankruptcy, divorce, pre foreclosure types of issues, I wanted to share what my experience has been. So, what are some of these reasons you might be filing for bankruptcy? You might feel that you have a lot of debtors trying to get after you, or excuse me, creditors as you as the debtor, and you're trying to see maybe if you can negotiate some of those payments and not pay as much. That would be the first thing I would look at. Have you tried to actually negotiate with a lot of these creditors that are pursuing you as the debtor? That would be a great place to start. Another reason to file is your liabilities far exceed out your assets, so maybe your monthly mortgage is too hard to handle at the time being compared to how much assets. Maybe you have a liquid assets of 50,000, a couple vehicles, some mattress money, right? But you kind of look at it, you're like, okay, if I sell all this $50,000 worth of assets, that'll only last me 2 years. So maybe I'll consider bankruptcy. Bankruptcy does have pros and cons, and what we're talking about here is mainly just Chapter 13. Not an attorney, but Chapter 7 is a reorganization, or excuse me, a liquidation, and Chapter 13 is a reorganization. So let's jump into this. So the positives, if you want to file bankruptcy and get I don't want to say a fresh start, I would say a restart, because you're restarting. You can do that, and it can be a great way for people to essentially get a fresh, clean slate. I've had family members that have personally done it, and it is a very, very, very long, consuming journey. But it can be very rewarding if you do it the right way and you have financial maturity. However, if you're not going to change your habits and you're just hoping that you're going to be able to drop off and discharge some of those monthly payments or debt, it's probably not going to work. Let's take a second and define what discharging is. Discharging means a forgiveness, either fully getting it discharged, getting a full forgiveness, or getting a partial discharge. Depending on what you have going on, you'll get either a full discharge or most likely a partial discharge. Some credit cannot be, some debt cannot be forgiven. Okay, so some of those things would be, if it's from the government, whether it's child support, alimony, employment taxes, federal income taxes, state income taxes, you're not going to have any room to negotiate with those. If you got a DUI or you got any other legal matters or any other fines from the government, you're not going to be able to negotiate those. So that's something to keep in mind. Let's jump into some of the negatives. So your credit is definitely going to be destroyed. It will be absolutely pummeled by this. It will take a major hit. On average, it's about 200 to 300 points. I've seen it go down a little bit further. It will also make it extremely, extremely difficult to get credit in the future, find another place to live. You will maybe be able to get a loan. However, you are going to get exorbitant interest rates because you've had a bankruptcy and you show that you can't file your debts. Or you can't handle your debts. So if you're going to get a loan, you're going to get more credit or apply for a home, expect that if you're able to get another one, you are going to be paying ridiculous interest rates. Also, your mortgage premiums, car insurance, anything that's kind of insurance related, you're going to have much higher premiums on those things. And the interest on those on top of that is going to be really tough. Don't forget about getting a new apartment. That's going to definitely be extremely difficult. Unless you got someone who won't check to see if you got a bankruptcy, you probably won't be able to get an apartment and rent a house. Getting a mortgage is definitely going to be really tough. More or less, if you're filing a Chapter 13, this is going to follow you for 7 years. Also, if you're looking at doing this just to keep your property, I don't know if that's the best idea in my experience. Sometimes you can repay that money, but a lot of times creditors see that in the bankruptcy estate or the bankruptcy trustee, they try to negotiate with the meeting of creditors, and a lot of times it's not what you want. You're not able to discharge a lot of that or get a lot of that past debt forgiven. You're hoping that maybe, what it would have taken to reinstate your loan, you're hoping that maybe you could get some of that past payments dropped off. But a lot of times that's not what happens. Generally, what happens is they get your previous payments, and they kind of divide that out over 3 to 5 years, depending on what it is. And then you have to make your regular payment on top of it, plus every other payment that you have, whether that's your phone, other utilities, child care, you know what I mean, a daycare, whatever those expenses are. It's one lump sum. And so, can it be a good idea to reorganize your debt? Absolutely. But more often than not, we see people, unfortunately, fall to the wayside and end up not being able to keep their bankruptcy in the right light. So what they do is, they fall off on making a payment or so, and then the bankruptcy gets dismissed. So if a bankruptcy gets dismissed, that means that everything that you had discharged previously that was forgiven, you're now going to owe that as well. So that's super tough. That's really tough. And you got to remember, when you go in and you do file the bankruptcy and you complete that bankruptcy to get it filed and start that new payment plan, you need to make sure you include absolutely all the debts. So, if Uncle Bill has $100, you need to make sure that that's in there and that's part of the payment plan. Otherwise, it doesn't exist. Or if you forgot a vehicle or something like that, that creditor can still go after you and you're not protected from that bankruptcy. One of the biggest impacts is the psychological, mental impact in the relationships. I mean, telling children, your kids, we file the bankruptcy, especially when they're at that age range of 7 to kind of 15, kind of figuring it out. A lot of people associate that with, and don't take this the wrong way, they feel themselves being like, I'm a loser, I'm not good enough, I'm not a good person. And there's just this stigma behind it that when you file a bankruptcy, you're just lower than other people. And that's most certainly not true. But, spouses have a different opinion from someone who can't have the financial maturity to figure out their debts, and they decide to, file bankruptcy, and then they get their bankruptcy dismissed. I see that happen. A lot of people get their bankruptcy dismissed, then they go through divorce and then lose their house anyway, and it sucks. So I would look into other options, because the mental and physical health aspect of feeling that you filed bankruptcy and then having your relationships, your neighbors and everybody know about it because it's public. You're going to get targeted with new types of mail and Facebook ads and all that. It's just going to be a constant reminder. So remember with your mental health that as well. In my personal opinion, the best time and the best time that you can file a bankruptcy, and the most adequate time, appropriate time I should say, is if you have a lot of debt from maybe a medical accident or something like that. Medical debt is something where these medical companies are incentivized to let go some of this money, right, with a discharge. It's good for you. It's good for them. They get to, have their special benefits with that. You get to not pay that. But if you're just considering filing a Chapter 13 to save your house, could be a good idea, could not be. These payments over time, I don't know if your bankruptcy attorney has told you this or anybody, but if you're considering filing a bankruptcy just to save your house, a Chapter 13, these payment plans, they're either 3 or 5 years, and they go up a little bit exponentially every time, which can be good or bad. Depending on if you lose your job, that could be really bad. Or if you have a change in, status, or a family member gets sick, or somebody passes away, or a kid is getting older and their needs increase and you need to pay for them to get ready to go to college, or, child care, or maybe they have medical things, or maybe you just want to have them have a better life. Sometimes, life is about kind of like a chess game. You got to trade in your pieces in order to get ahead in the game. And sometimes I see a lot of people who have financial maturity to trade in their house or do something with their house because they realize home is where, not an address, but with the people that they love the most. And sometimes trading that in and doing something different is a lot better of an option than a bankruptcy, because maybe somebody wants to file bankruptcy and then they want to move to the other side of the country, but they realize that they're not really able to find a new place to live. It's going to be hard for them to find a job. Unfortunately, there's a lot of employers that you have to put down if you file a bankruptcy. And of course, there's certain protections that you're not allowed to be prejudged about having a bankruptcy or any of those things, but it happens. This is the real world, right? Unfortunately, I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of people, they see you have a bankruptcy, they're not going to want you around because they get nervous, they don't know much about bankruptcy, or there's just that negative stigma about bankruptcy too. So a lot of people are going to not give you that job opportunity. It's going to be harder to find a job, and it'll follow you. So hopefully this information is helpful. If you want to reach out to me personally, you can. I'm on Facebook. My name is Alex Wojcik. You could give me a call. My number is 720-219-9928. We can help you find a bankruptcy attorney. We can help you look at other options, because there really are a lot of really good options. I'm not saying bankruptcy is a bad one. I'm just saying that I see it pushed onto people. People don't actually understand the intricacies of bankruptcy and the consequences that it has with their credit, the payment plan, and actually being able to keep their house, because a lot of people actually just fall to the wayside with their bankruptcy payment plan because they were not properly informed and they didn't understand the illustrations, or they left some things out of the bankruptcy with the meeting of creditors. And there's a lot of other small things that go into this, but this is just a very good introduction of some options. If you want a more comprehensive introduction, please reach out to me. I hope you find this information useful. If you do, give it a like. Please, send this over to somebody who might need it. With COVID and everything like that, coronavirus has really caused a lot of people to really think about what they should do, whether it's a forbearance or it's a bankruptcy or some other type of legal act. It's going to have some ramifications. So please reach out to me. Let me know how I can help you, and feel free to leave a comment or send me a direct message. Thank you so much. Have a good one.